If you have been filling in your eyebrows with a pencil every single morning just to look like yourself, and your lashes have gotten so thin that mascara barely has anything to grip, I want you to know that what is happening is not what most doctors will ever take the time to explain to you. You have probably tried the serums. You have probably read the labels and followed the directions and waited, and then waited some more. And you looked in the mirror 6 weeks later and felt that quiet, familiar disappointment. That is not a failure of effort. That is a failure of information. You were solving for the wrong thing because no one ever told you what was actually driving this.
I am Dr. Ethan Reed. I am an integrative medicine physician with over 2 decades of clinical practice, and I specialize in exactly what gets skipped over at a standard appointment. Today we are talking about one specific nutrient, a single deficiency that research now directly connects to the follicles of your brows and lashes going quiet. Not dying, going quiet. And that distinction changes everything. Here is the reframe I want you to hold on to from the very first minute of this video. Your follicles are almost certainly not gone. They are dormant. Dormant is a very different word than dead. And there is a specific 5-step protocol that addresses this from the inside out, beginning with something as simple as when you step outside in the morning and ending with a targeted local step that almost no one talks about. Stay with me all the way through because that final step is the one that finally explains why some women take the right vitamin faithfully for months and still see nothing change. You will want to hear it before you draw any conclusions. Let us start with what is actually happening inside your body right now. Think of each eyebrow and eyelash follicle as a small self-contained factory. It has its own internal clock, its own growth cycle, its own on-off switch. When everything is working correctly, that factory cycles through periods of active growth, transition, and rest, and then wakes up and starts again. Your brows cycle faster than the hair on your scalp. They are smaller, they are more sensitive, and they have less reserve capacity to draw from when the body's supply chain runs thin. Here's what is happening inside your body right now. Sitting directly inside the stem cells of those follicle factories is a receptor, a docking station, that scientists call the VDR, which stands for vitamin D receptor. That receptor is part of the switch that tells the follicle to wake up and enter its growth phase. When vitamin D reaches that receptor and binds to it, the switch flips. The factory starts running. When vitamin D is scarce, when levels in the blood are low enough that the follicle's local receptor is essentially waiting for a delivery that never arrives, the switch stays off. The factory sits dark and idle. Not broken, not demolished, just waiting for a signal that is no longer getting through. After 60, your skin's ability to manufacture vitamin D from sunlight declines measurably. The skin itself becomes thinner, and the enzymes that convert sunlight into usable vitamin D slow down with age. So even women who spend time outdoors, who garden, who walk regularly, can be quietly deficient, and the standard symptoms, fatigue, low mood, joint discomfort, get chalked up to aging rather than investigated. Your brows and lashes may be among the earliest and most visible places this shortage announces itself. The truth is, this is not your follicles failing. This is a supply chain problem, and supply chain problems have specific, correctable solutions. Here is what follows: 5 specific steps that address this biology one layer at a time, the precise places where the system is breaking down, and what to do about each one. Together, they form a sequential protocol, and skipping any single step is usually the reason this approach quietly fails for women who have tried parts of it before. We are almost at 100,000 subscribers. Subscribe and make sure this information keeps reaching you. Reason 5, the silent signal you have been missing. Most women who come to me with thinning brows have never once connected that concern to a blood test. That is the first thing we need to change.
Here is what is happening inside your body before you do anything else. Your body has no reliable way to tell you that vitamin D is low. There is no alarm, no obvious pain, no single clear symptom that points directly to it. What there is instead are quiet, overlapping signals that most people dismiss as simply getting older. Ridged or splitting fingernails, those small vertical lines that were not there a decade ago. A fatigue that crept in gradually and that you have started accepting as part of the deal. And crucially, brow and lash thinning that has progressed noticeably faster than any hair loss on your scalp. That third sign is the one that matters most and gets noticed least. A peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology found that women with clinical vitamin D insufficiency showed significantly higher rates of eyebrow and eyelash thinning compared to women with sufficient levels, a finding that rarely makes it into a standard dermatology appointment. Brow and lash follicles cycle much faster than scalp follicles, have smaller reserve capacity, and respond to nutrient shortfalls earlier. They are, in a very real sense, the first visible signal of a deficiency that may be wider than it appears. The fix here is not a supplement, not yet. The fix is information. Ask your doctor for a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test at your next appointment. The number you are looking for is your blood level in nanograms per milliliter. Most labs flag anything under 30 as insufficient. And the research on follicle function suggests the optimal range for this purpose sits higher, between 50 and 70. If you would rather not wait for a referral, at-home test kits are available at most pharmacies for under $10. Get the number first. Everything that follows is built on knowing where you are starting. Tonight, call your doctor's office tomorrow morning and request the test, or order a kit tonight so it is ready to use this week. You cannot optimize what you have not measured. Pro tip most people miss. Ask your doctor to run your 25-hydroxy vitamin D level specifically, not a general wellness panel. Many standard panels omit it entirely unless it is explicitly requested. 3 words on a slip of paper change everything. 25-hydroxy D. I want to hear from you before we go further. Have you ever had your vitamin D level tested, and did your doctor bring it up on their own, or did you have to ask? Leave your answer in the comments. You would be surprised how many women discover this number only by accident, and your experience matters to others reading along. Reason 4. The morning window your skin no longer uses the same way. You have probably heard the advice your entire life. Get some sun. And you probably do. So why is your vitamin D still low? Here is what is happening inside your body right now. The layer of skin responsible for converting ultraviolet light into the precursor form of vitamin D, a compound called cholecalciferol, gets measurably thinner after 60. Alongside that, the enzyme that drives the conversion slows down with age. The result is that the same 20 minutes of outdoor time that produced useful amounts of vitamin D for you at 40 produces significantly less at 65 or 70. You are doing the same thing. You are getting a different result. And nobody has told you to adjust. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology confirmed that older adults require substantially more sun exposure than younger adults to produce equivalent vitamin D levels, and that even regular outdoor activity does not reliably compensate for this reduction in conversion efficiency. The fix is a small, specific adjustment. 10 to 15 minutes of direct sun exposure, forearms and face, no sunscreen during this specific window only, in the early to mid-morning, before the sun reaches its highest, harshest angle. Not a long outdoor session, not a deliberate tan, a brief, repeated, consistent exposure at the time of day when your skin's conversion pathway is most responsive and the UV index is still tolerable. Several times a week, not just on weekends. Picture sitting with your morning coffee, on a porch, or near a window that opens. Bare forearms resting in the early light for 15 minutes. That is the entire step. Small enough to be sustainable, consistent enough to matter. Tonight, look at your morning routine and find the 15-minute window where this fits. Set a reminder for tomorrow. One small, repeated habit will move your baseline in a way that a single long afternoon outside never will. Pro tip, and this one is critical. Midday sun is not better for this purpose in older skin. It is actually harder on it. The early morning window is the one that delivers conversion benefit while sparing your skin the highest UV exposure of the day. Earlier is more effective, not just more comfortable. Here's something I am genuinely curious about. Do you already have a morning routine, a cup of tea on the porch, a walk before the neighborhood gets busy, that could hold this 15-minute window without adding anything new to your day? Tell me in the comments what your mornings look like. The women who make this work usually fold it into something that already exists. Reason 3, the cofactor nobody tells you to add. This is the reason most women who take vitamin D supplements faithfully for 6 months still see nothing change. And it is so simple that it is almost frustrating once you understand it. Here is what is happening inside your body. Vitamin D, in the form you absorb it, whether from sunlight or a capsule, is not yet in the form your follicles can use. It has to be converted. That conversion requires 2 cofactors. The first is magnesium, a mineral that activates the enzyme responsible for transforming vitamin D into its biologically active form. The second is vitamin K2, a nutrient that helps direct the activated vitamin D toward the tissues where it is needed, including, research suggests, the follicle itself, rather than allowing it to circulate passively and largely unused. A major study published in the Journal of the American Osteopathic Association found that magnesium deficiency directly impairs the body's ability to convert and activate vitamin D, meaning that supplementing one without the other can leave the entire system stalled, regardless of how consistent the supplementation is. The engine is there, the fuel line is missing. The fix is pairing. If you are taking a vitamin D supplement, take it alongside a magnesium source, either through magnesium-rich foods like leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, and almonds, or through a modest supplement if your diet falls short. And add vitamin K2, found in fermented foods or in a combined D3 plus K2 capsule available at most pharmacies for a few dollars a month. Take them together at the same time, not on separate days. This single pairing is often the entire difference between a vitamin sitting in your bloodstream doing nothing and a vitamin reaching the cells that are waiting for it. Tonight, check whether your current vitamin D supplement already includes K2. Many do not. If it does not, pick up a combined D3 plus K2 supplement at your next grocery or pharmacy run. Pro tip most people miss. The most absorbable form of magnesium for this purpose is magnesium glycinate. It is gentler on digestion than magnesium oxide, which is the cheapest and most commonly used form and the least well absorbed. Read the label before you buy. Quick question before we continue, and I ask this because the answer genuinely surprises most women. When you look at your current supplements, does your vitamin D include K2, or is it vitamin D alone? Check the label right now if you have it nearby. Drop what you find in the comments. Most people discover at this moment that they have been running the engine without the fuel line. What you are hearing today is here every week. Subscribe so none of it passes you by. Reason 2, the absorption problem that silently empties every capsule you take. Stay with me through this one. What you hear next sets the stage directly for the final step, the one that changes everything. Vitamin D is fat-soluble. Those 2 words explain why so many women take it correctly, pair it with the right cofactors, and still find their blood levels barely moving on a follow-up test. Fat-soluble vitamins require dietary fat to be present in the digestive tract at the same time they are ingested. Otherwise, The body cannot absorb most of the dose. It simply passes through unused. Here is what is happening inside your body when you take vitamin D on an empty stomach or with just water. The capsule dissolves, the vitamin enters the digestive environment with no fat present, and the majority of the dose is not absorbed. It is not a bad supplement. It is not the wrong brand. It is a timing and pairing problem that no one mentions on the label. A peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that vitamin D absorption increased significantly, in some cases by nearly 50%, when supplements were taken with a fat-containing meal compared to a fat-free one. This is not a marginal detail. It is potentially half the dose lost daily for years. The fix is the same meal every day. Eggs cooked in a small amount of butter, avocado on whole grain toast, a salad with olive oil dressing, a small handful of walnuts. Any meal that includes a natural fat source. Pair your vitamin D, your magnesium, and your K2 with that meal every single day, same time, same meal, and let the habit do the work rather than relying on willpower and memory. Tonight, decide right now which meal tomorrow will be your vitamin D meal. Write it down. The decision made once becomes the habit that runs automatically. Pro tip, and this one is critical. The meal does not need to be high in fat. A small amount of healthy fat, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, half an avocado, a few nuts, is enough to open the absorption pathway. You are not changing your diet. You are timing one thing differently. Tell me in the comments, what does your usual breakfast or lunch look like? I ask because the meal you already eat every morning is probably already the right vehicle for this. Most women are one small habit shift away from getting this right, and I want to help you see exactly where it fits in your existing day. Reason 1, the local step that finally closes the gap. Here's the piece I promised you at the very beginning. The reason some women do everything right, the sunlight window, the cofactor pairing, the fat paired dosing, and still feel like something is missing. Here is what is happening inside your body. Even when vitamin D levels in the bloodstream are correcting, there is no guarantee that the amount reaching the follicle itself, at the local level, right where the VDR receptor sits, is sufficient to flip the switch. The bloodstream is a delivery system, not a precision tool. Your eyebrow follicle sits millimeters below the surface of your skin. It has a receptor waiting for a specific signal. That signal may still be arriving inconsistently, especially in the early weeks of a protocol, before blood levels have fully stabilized. Research published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology has documented that topical vitamin D analogs, forms applied directly to the skin, can interact with the VDR receptor at the follicle level and support the growth phase signaling cycle. Most of this research has focused on prescription strength compounds used in dermatology, but the underlying biology, the receptor is there, it is accessible, it responds to local application, is well-established science. I want to be direct with you about where the evidence is strongest. Prescription topical vitamin D analogs have the most robust study data. Over-the-counter vitamin D facial oils are a reasonable, low-risk addition to the protocol, not a replacement for the 4 steps above, but a way to give the follicle every possible advantage by meeting it where it lives. Think of it as closing the last inch of a gap that oral supplementation alone cannot guarantee. If you want to add this step, choose a vitamin D facial oil that is specifically formulated for use near the eyes. Read the label carefully, and if there is any doubt, keep it only on the brow line, not the lash line. After cleansing at night, use a clean fingertip to apply a very small amount along each brow and gently, lightly massage it in. You are not pressing or rubbing. You are depositing it at the surface and letting it sit. That is all it needs to do. Tonight, after cleansing, apply a small amount of the oil to one brow just to establish the habit of where this step belongs in your routine. Pro tip most people miss. The nighttime application is not incidental. Follicle activity is at its highest during sleep, which is when the body carries out much of its repair and regeneration. Applying locally right before sleep positions the nutrient at the receptor site precisely when the follicle's own internal cycle is most active. That timing is not a coincidence. I want to ask you something personal before we move on. Is there a specific moment, getting ready in the morning, catching your reflection somewhere unexpected, a photograph, when you first really noticed the change in your brows or lashes? Tell me in the comments. Not because it is a small thing, because it is not, and because the women reading below your comment will recognize exactly what you are describing. Here is exactly how to run all 5 steps together as a daily routine. Every morning, get 10 to 15 minutes of direct sun on your bare forearms and face. No sunscreen during this window only, in the early to mid-morning before the sun reaches its highest point. Several mornings per week, not occasionally. With your largest fat-containing meal of the day, take your vitamin D3 supplement alongside your vitamin K2. Many combined D3 plus K2 capsules are available at most pharmacies for under $15 per month. Take a magnesium source at the same meal, either magnesium glycinate as a supplement or a daily serving of leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, or almonds. Always the same meal every day. Absorption requires fat, consistency, and all 3 nutrients together. Every evening, after cleansing, apply a small amount of vitamin D facial oil along the brow line. Gentle, light contact. Leave it in place overnight. Cleanse normally in the morning. Most important preparation note. The single most common reason this protocol produces no result is taking vitamin D in isolation, on an empty stomach, without the cofactors, at an inconsistent time. The 5 steps only work as a system. Partial application produces partial or no results and leaves you believing the protocol failed when it was never fully running. This protocol costs less per week than a single brow growth serum. And unlike that, it is aimed at the actual source of the problem. The measurement window is 90 days. At 30 days, photograph your brow line in natural light, same position, same time of day. Do this again at 60 days and again at 90. You are not looking for a dramatic transformation. You are documenting a return. Find new hairs at the outer third of the brow. Lashes that hold mascara better. Small, real, cumulative. Here is the full picture and why every piece of it matters. Reason 5. Your brow and lash follicles are among the earliest visible indicators of a vitamin D deficiency. And a simple $9 blood test is the foundation everything else is built on. Reason 4. Aging skin converts sunlight to vitamin D less efficiently, and a small, consistent early morning exposure window is a smarter approach than longer sun sessions at the wrong time of day. Reason 3. Vitamin D cannot be activated or directed without magnesium and K2, and taking it without its cofactors is the most common reason 6 months of supplementation produces nothing visible. Reason 2. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, and taking it without dietary fat means most of each dose is never absorbed. A timing correction alone can dramatically change what your blood levels show. Reason 1. The follicle has a receptor waiting for a local signal, and topical application at the brow line positions vitamin D precisely where that receptor lives, closing the gap that oral supplementation alone cannot guarantee. Each of these alone contributes. Together, they create the full picture of why the follicle went quiet and exactly how to bring it back. This is not inevitable. This is not simply aging. This is physiology, and physiology can be addressed. Your brow and lash follicles have been doing something remarkable for 6, 7, 8 decades. They cycled through growth and rest thousands of times without you ever having to think about it. They are not finished. They are waiting quietly, patiently, for a signal that the supply chain has been interrupting for years without anyone identifying where the break was. Start tonight. Not next week, tonight. Cleanse your face, apply the oil, set out tomorrow's supplement beside the meal where you will take it, and look up your morning sun window before you go to sleep. Those are 4 decisions made once, not 4 habits you have to build from scratch. Take a photograph today, natural light, same position, brows visible. Put it somewhere you will find it in 90 days. That photograph is not vanity. It is your baseline, and you deserve to see the difference. The factory was never demolished. The supply chain just needs to start running again. We are almost at 100,000 subscribers, and every person who joins this community is helping build something that genuinely serves people. If this video was worth your time, that subscription is worth 3 seconds of yours. If you know someone who has been spending money on brow serums and lash products that cannot work because she has never been told what is actually driving the thinning, hit like. It costs you nothing. It may reach exactly the person who needs this most. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 steps do you think has been the missing piece for you? I read every comment, and your answer shapes what I cover next. Share this with a sister, a friend, a neighbor, whoever you know who draws her brows on every single morning and has never once wondered why. You may never know whose mirror moment you change by doing that. I am Dr. Ethan Reed. I will see you in the next video.